Hey, welcome everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. Just going to give a minute or two to allow everyone to join us today. We've got a big group today, so we're really excited to give you this presentation today. We're just going to give a minute here. While we're waiting for everyone to join, I just wanted to got a few announcements, a few things I want to talk about. Welcome everyone today for taking your time during your lunchtime here on today, December 18th. My name is Chris Tipton. I'm the Marketing and Communications Manager at the East Bay Rental Housing Association. Today's Rental Housing Forum is put on through the Housing Provider Resource Center, and which is powered by EBRHA. We partnered with Alameda County and HCD to put together this resource program, first of its kind for a county program that helps housing providers, small rental providers, owners, property managers in the unincorporated areas. What this primarily is for those areas that don't really have any resources and that they're challenged in navigating complex rental regulations and legal requirements. And so we wanted to create this sort of one-stop hub to kind of help with general education and guidance and support. You know, EBRHA as an association, we've been around for a long time. But we wanted to kind of provide a little something at the resource center, which is at www.achprc.org. We've got a learning center there with free classes. So if you're an EBRHA member, or if you're not, anyone can go to this website and check out some of these courses, test your knowledge, how much you know about rental housing, if you've been in a long time, or if you're new to it. And some of the topics are about ADUs, balcony inspections, which those deadlines are coming up, you know, changing locks on your renters. How does that work? Rent reporting, screening, security deposits. There's a lot of things that you need to know when dealing with your renters. So it's a great resource. Go check that out. EBRHA, which puts on the resource center in collaboration with the county. We've been around since 1939, and we are a nonprofit trade association. We've got over 1,500 members, provide almost 60,000 homes for 140,000 residents across Alameda and Contra Costa counties. So we are a full service, rental association that helps renters with education, with advocacy, with compliance, and provide a community also. So we're all over Alameda and Contra Costa helping with that. We've got promotions for, if you're a realtor on this call, we've got a new realtor promotion I want to let you know about, which is a great one. You can, being a member of EBRHA doesn't mean just being a rental housing provider. If you're in the housing world, it's great to be a member of EBRHA to learn about what's going on, help your clients, protect your reputation, stay ahead on what's going on, and be a real resource for your clients. So this is a great promotion you should check out at EBRHA.com. This is the season to renew your membership. If any of you are EBRHA members, or if you're looking to become a member, now is a great time to renew your membership or join EBRHA. We may be raising our rents. The board is looking at raising our pricing for membership next year. So if you are an EBRHA member, renew before the end of the month, and you can lock in your 2025 the cost for membership for the next 2 years through 2027. And if you've been a member for a long time, over 10 years, our longtime members, renew now before the end of the month, and your membership will never increase so long as you remain a member with EBRHA. So this is a great promotion. We want to encourage you. And even if your membership doesn't expire before the end of the month and you just joined recently, or maybe your renew date is later on in the 2026, you can go in, lock in, renew, say, hey, I want to renew for the next year, and lock in for the next 2 years at a lower rate. So it's a great promotion. We're encouraging you. Even if your membership isn't up for renewal quite yet, you can go in and lock in. And then wanted to just remind everyone, lastly, we've got our annual housing collaborative coming up on January 31st. This is a great event. We started last year. This is our second year doing it. The collaborative is a free event for the general public, and its mission is to connect all the nonprofit community-based organizations that support housing, rental housing providers, renters, aspiring homeowners, anything in the housing world, and introduce you to the various support programs that Alameda County and organizations in the county offer to you. So this is sort of a one-stop shop for all those nonprofit resources and organizations that are out there that can help you. So this is a great one to find all those places all those resources in one spot. So with that, I want to thank you guys for joining us again today at your lunch hour. We're really excited to have Alameda County Assessor Law with us today. And here he is. I want to introduce Phong. Thank you for joining us. You've always been a real advocate for EBRHA and really supportive of us. And we want to thank you for coming in and joining us for today and sharing and going through this great topic for today. So thank you again, and take it over.
Well, thank you very much, Chris, and thank you for inviting me here today. I'm just so you guys know a little bit about me and why this is an interesting organization for me is because I'm a rental property owner myself. I've been in the industry for well over 20 years now. I was also a lawyer. I probably represented some of you in my career as a lawyer. And I became the assessor because I hated the assessor. I was one of those guys that just did not have much faith in government, and everyone who would listen, I would complain to. And one day they said, why don't you run for the job if you're talking so much smack about it? And so unfortunately, I ran for the job and got elected. So now I'm your assessor. For those of you who hate paying property taxes, I hate it as well. I paid mine the very last day. And I pay with a physical check because it takes the county 3 more days to get my money, because I don't want the county to get my money any faster than it has to. So that gives you a little bit of background about me and why I appreciate all of you. I know the hardships that you guys go through as property owners and the hardships that you endure providing rental housing for others. So thank you for the service that you provide, and I'm here to help you. And one of the
Thank you. Appreciate you being here.
You're very welcome, Chris. One of the biggest issues that we get is what happens to my property, either when I pass away or if I want to give my property over to my children. What happens to the property taxes? Well, there has been some dramatic changes to California's property tax laws. Many of you are familiar with some of it, some of you are not, so I'm going to try and go over it as high level as I can. If you have any other questions, we're going to talk about some resources available to you at our office at the very end of this presentation. So let's go through those slides. And if you have questions, feel free to put it in the chat. I don't think they disabled it, so just throw it in the chat and I'll take them as they come along. I don't want you to forget the questions, so feel free to just write them in there. Okay, so first part, the disclaimer. The county makes me say this. Although I'm a lawyer, I'm not your lawyer. So this is not legal advice. This is just general information. All right, next slide. What does the assessor do? It is my job to put a value on everything in Alameda County, which includes land and buildings, but what people don't know is it also includes business equipment. So if you own a factory, we also tax your factory equipment. If you own an office, we tax the computers, the tables, the desks, the chairs. It is my job to put an assessed value on everything in Alameda County, and then we put a tax on it. Boats, airplanes are also taxed. People don't realize that. I'll give you one fun, interesting fact. We also have a submarine parked in Alameda County that we tax. So don't ask me how we tax submarines. That's a tough one. Next slide. And I saw a question pop up. So if someone can, if Chris, if you or someone can just view the questions for me, and if it's relevant to what I'm saying, just throw it out, say question, and just read it for me, and then I'll do my best to answer it.
Okay.
Property taxes. How are they decided? Who's involved? Next slide. There are 3 of us that dictate how property taxes work in Alameda County. We are all elected officials. Next slide. I take this as a joke. I make a lot of bad jokes, so please don't take everything I say so seriously. First bad joke. The 3 of us here, this is like the mafia. That's the best way for me to describe this work that we do. I'm the boss of the family, right? The godfather. I say how much money, right? I put the assessed value on the property. Melissa Wilk is your auditor. She's the accountant. She applies the tax rate for your property. Now, the tax rate is different depending on where you're at in the county. And people always ask, why is it? Why are some cities higher than others? Well, it's because you, the voters, vote on special assessments within your tax district. So, for example, in the last election, we saw a lot of parcel taxes for school districts. We saw one for the hospital down in Fremont. We see them for road repairs, sewer lines. So you, the voters, vote on those special assessments, which changes your tax rate. So Melissa has to calculate all that. And then comes Hank. Hank is the enforcer. He collects the money. That's why you write your checks to Hank Levy. If you don't pay your property taxes, Hank breaks your knees or he forecloses on your house, one or the other. And the three of us are all elected officials. You chose us to do this work. Next slide. I just saw it. You can get a copy of this slide. It's online as well. So all my slides, everything I present to you guys are all on our website. If you guys are bored at night and you can't fall asleep, I also do a 2-hour presentation on this. I guarantee you'll fall asleep if you watch my 2-hour presentation. This is a 20-minute presentation. So you're getting the condensed version today with a lot of bad jokes. All right. Where does my money go? About 42% goes to the school district, 18% to the city, 15% to the county. If you're in the unincorporated area like Castro Valley, the entire city county portion goes to the county. Special districts, East Bay Mud, Zone 7, those are special districts. And then redevelopment, something that has gone away, but that eventually will get redistributed to everyone else. Next slide. Decline in market value. Next slide. So we're seeing something happen that we haven't seen in over 10 years. We're beginning to see property values go down. Specifically, we're seeing property values go down in multifamily housing in portions of Oakland and unincorporated San Leandro. We're also seeing property values go down for condo units. So what is the assessor? What role can I play in this? We sent out letters to over 800 property owners who own multifamily units in Oakland. Only 100 of you responded to us. Only 100 of you, I'm going to say this, only 100 of you sounds like you want a discount. That letter said, if you want a discount, send us your financial statement so we see what income you're generating. Because the value of multifamily is based primarily on the income it generates. We believe there could be reductions there. But out of 800 letters, only 100 were responded to. People don't want, the assessor has the option of working with people to reduce the property taxes proactively, but we can't do it without you. So what happens in these reductions? If we give you a reduction, it's called a Prop 8 temporary 1-year reduction. You have to ask for it each and every year, right? So I'm going to give you an example for condo units. We're about to send out reductions for condo units. If you bought your condo, I'm going to give you an example. We just did the research for Emeryville. There are about 500 condos in Emeryville. Between the period of 2017 to 2024, the reduction could be anywhere from 5 to 20%, depending on the type of unit, the size, the year built, and the year purchased. So that gives you an example of what we can do in a decline in market. So these reductions are for 1 year, and then you have to ask for it each and every year after that. Next slide. Under Proposition 13, which is the law that governs California's property taxes, the assessor can increase your property taxes no more than 2% a year from the prior value, except when the assessor gives you a discount. So for instance, if I give you a 10% reduction this year, next year I can increase your property taxes by 12%, right? 2% normally, but because there's a 10% reduction the prior year, you can get that, we can get that back. That's why it's important for you to respond to us, because we need to see whether the reduction is still there each and every following year. And we can't do that without your information. Next slide. Prop 19, this is why you guys asked me to come here. Prop 19 is the biggest change in California property tax law since Proposition 13 passed in 1978. So it's been almost 40 years since we had a big change in California property tax law. To understand what happened with Prop 19, it's really important to understand how Prop 13 worked. Here's an example of Prop 13 working. If my mom and dad bought a house in 1980 in Pleasanton for $100,000, and believe it or not, in 1980, Pleasanton market value for a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,200 square foot house was $100,000. They're paying about $1,250 in property taxes in 1980. Let's say hypothetically, for ease of math, the property today is worth $1 million. We know it's worth way more than $1 million, but for easy math, let's call it $1 million. The property taxes today would be about $200,000 of assessment. Remember I said 2% a year increases the max? Over 40 years, it almost doubles the property taxes from $100,000 assessment to $200,000, which means the property taxes are about $2,500 a year, rather than the $1 million market value, which would have led to a $12,000 of property taxes. Next slide. Property taxes are reassessed either at the change of ownership or when there's new construction added. People always ask me, what happens if I replace the roof? Nothing, right? Normal wear and repair does not trigger an increase in your property taxes. The biggest trigger of a property tax is when you have a change in ownership. For example, if you add someone on title, that is called a change of ownership. We're going to talk about what happens when you do that with Prop 19. So in that same scenario of Pleasanton, if the house is sold for $1 million, the property taxes jump from $2,500 to $12,500. Next slide. The old law, this is the old one. Any primary residence can go from parent to child and not trigger a reassessment, irregardless of value amount. And I say that because the new law is very different. You can transfer under the old law up to $1 million of assessed value of rental property to your children and not trigger a reassessment under the old rule. The new rule is very different. I'm going to repeat, the new rule is different now. Next slide. All right, same house. Under the old rule, my mom and dad give me that house. They sell me the house. I inherit the house. As long as I file a claim with the county assessor showing that it is my mom and dad that gave me that house, I get to keep the low property taxes, right? I have 3 years under the old rule, again, under the old rule, to make that claim with the county assessor. Next slide. In 2020, there were 2 propositions that would have changed property taxation rules. Prop 15 failed, which was the rule that said, Mr. Assessor, please reassess all commercial property every 3 years. That failed. Prop 19, which changed the rules for how parents can gift and pass on property to their children, and how seniors 55 or older can take their base value with them, that barely passed. So now we're in Prop 19 territory under the new rule. Next slide. I saw a lot of questions in there, so I'm going to get to them as soon as I'm sure Chris is reading them and he'll throw them out at me soon. Next slide. Next slide. All right. Next slide. This is just a cover slide. All right. As of February 15th, 2021, Proposition 19 took effect on parent-child transfers. There is now a cap on the transfer of primary home assessed values to your children. So let's start with, how do we know if it is a primary home for someone? In order to be treated as a primary home, you, the homeowner, must have a homeowner's exemption on the home. How do you get a homeowner's exemption? You get it from your county assessor. If you're in Alameda County, this guy. How do I get it from the county assessor? I have a rule in government. There is a form for everything. We have like 200 forms on our website. There is a form, and we're very creative in naming our forms. There's a form. It is called the homeowner's exemption form. Get it? You fill it out, you send it in to us, and if you qualify, we will give you the homeowner's exemption on that home. In order for your children to inherit your low property taxes, it has to be your primary home. And we will determine it to be your primary home if you have a homeowner's exemption on your property. After you pass it on to your children, they have 1 year from the date of change of ownership. Now, that 1 year starts either the day you die, the day you deed it to your children, or the day you sell it to your children, right? And this is where a lot of families get in trouble. They don't realize that that date of death triggers the reassessment. And you have 1 year from that. Now, I'm going to give you a little bit of background information here, what assessors are trying to do to help homeowners. We're trying to get a law passed that says if your house is in probate, because we know that the probate courts can take years, we'll give you more than 1 year. But right now, the law, the way it's written, the way it was passed, gives you 1 year, irregardless of whether it's in probate or not. So we have a lot of families in Alameda County that can't keep their low property taxes because they're fighting over the property in probate. The other change, you also must tell us that the transfer is between a parent and child. It's called a parent-child exclusion form. The child needs to fill out that form to let the county assessor know that it was the parent who gave them that house or sold them that house. The new law also no longer allows the transfer of investment property or rental property without triggering a reassessment. I told you the old law allowed you to pass up to $1 million of assessed value. Now, anything that is not a primary home, meaning a rental house, a cabin, a vacation home, a commercial property, all trigger reassessments. Now, a lot of you aren't happy about that. You know who you blame for that? Yourselves. We voted for this. Oh, I didn't vote for it, but whoever voted for this got this passed. Next slide.
Let's see, I've got a couple questions maybe we can tackle before we move on. Let's see. So when you were reset, like multifamily properties, do vacancies count when you reassess? That there's units that are empty about the value what's brought in?
So it depends. So appraisals take different approaches, right? If we have enough data, the best way to do an appraisal is through a market approach, a similar property that was sold with some adjustments. For instance, I'll use your house, for example. You have a 4-bedroom, 2-bath, 2,000 square foot house in a suburban community in Pleasanton. If you have another 4-bedroom, 2-bath house in the tract development that was sold down the street within a month of that sale, that's a pretty good comparable for value, right? For multifamily, sometimes we look at income, but we also look at, well, if it's vacant, why is it vacant? Is it a market condition that caused it to be vacant? Or did the owner just leave it vacant? If the owner just left it vacant, we're not going to treat that as zero income. We're going to treat it as what the market would normally provide. So if the normal market condition says a 2-bedroom, 2-bath unit within a multifamily charges $2,000 a month, we'll impugn $2,000 a month of income on that property when we're determining the value of that property, right? So we also look at condition of the property, right? A Class A property is worth a whole lot more than a Class C property. We will look at location of property. Downtowns are typically more expensive, or maybe not today, but usually more expensive than, say, other parts of older communities. Fremont property is worth more than Hayward property, typically on the market, right, for multifamily. So we'll look at all those factors in determining a appraised value.
Okay.
A couple other questions there, Chris?
Let's see. It says, I think to refer to what you were talking about earlier. Is this discount from purchasing price or from last year?
So typically, if we're that's a kind of a vague question. I'm gonna give you kind of a vague answer. When we are looking at reductions, we're looking at the date of January 1. The law says assessor look at January 1, determine the value based on that date. So we're looking at a 3-month range from January 1 to see what data we can pull to determine value. If you're buying a house and it's in the middle of the year, we will look at the values right around that same time frame. On June, let's say you buy and you close escrow on June 1. We'll look at values based on June 1, right? So it depends on where that question is going, right? If we're looking at an annual reduction request, or we're looking at an assessment for a first-time transfer of property.
Okay. Let's see. There was one. Let's see. If an older person cannot pay property taxes, can they stay in their house until they die?
So the tax, I'm not the tax, by the way, I'm not the tax collector. I'm the county assessor. The other guy on that chart is the tax collector. That's his job to make those determinations. But typically the tax collector will give someone up to 5 years to true up on any back taxes before they sell the property at an auction.
Okay. Let's see. How was Oakland's vacant property tax assessed. The tax fine for the vacant residential property is $6,000 per year.
So that is determined by the city of Oakland, right? So when you look at your property tax bill, there's one part of it that I'm responsible for, and there's a big part that I'm not responsible for. Imagine the tax bill right in front of you. The left side of your tax bill says something called ad valorem. Ad valorem means what value. I determine the ad valorem value. So you'll see a value that says land and premises, right? Basically, your building, your land value, and your building. I make that determination. On the right side of your tax bill, you'll see a whole bunch of charges. Those are called special assessments, right? School district, vector control, water board, parks, you name it. Vacant parcel tax. Those are all by other government agencies. What they do is they send to the county a list of all their charges to be added to the tax bill. And the county does a courtesy collection for them. But they are responsible for what goes on to that tax bill. And the question about vacant parcel tax in Oakland, the city of Oakland makes that determination of whether your parcel is a vacant parcel or not. We do not make that determination. We have no say in it whatsoever.
Okay, you talked about that reduction. You hadn't got a lot of responses. Is it too late to submit the financial documents for that?
No, do it now. Now.
Right.
Like, think about, I only have 40 appraisers in the office, right? That's a lot of work for us. Half of them are residential appraisers, half are commercial appraisers. We have 6 apartment appraisers trying to do all this work. We need as much time as possible to get it fixed and reduced before the next tax bill goes out, right? I wish I had more resources to help people, but this is what the county gives me. So the faster you get it in, the faster we can do it, and the more likely it'll get done for this tax roll.
Excellent. Now we sent a reminder out to our members about it, but I will send that out again just to remind everyone, and maybe we can get some more into you. Can you speak more about redevelopment agencies and how the payback to the state works and impacts to schools and others?
So redevelopment is kind of a complicated issue. I'm going to give you kind of a short 10-second answer for redevelopment. Redevelopment says, all right, a city says, here's the base value for property taxes for this block of buildings. A private developer will come in and say, okay, city of Oakland, if I increase the property taxes for this block because of my development that I'm going to put money into, I get that difference in property taxes paid back to me, the redevelopment agency, right? Which is usually operated by developers. That's redevelopment. So the schools and the other districts end up losing that difference for 30 years or 40 years or however long that redevelopment contract is. The intent of redevelopment is to help blighted communities where people don't want to come in and build. So this incentivizes people to come in and build because they're getting some money to do so. Now, when Jerry Brown became governor of California, he did away with redevelopment. But because redevelopment agencies last for so long, 30, 40, 50 years, they still exist on the books. Over time, those will dissipate and go away. But for now, they're still there on the books. There's a lot of redevelopment agencies that have been built over the 50 years that I was in operation. Right? We see a bunch of them in Oakland. Downtown Oakland has a bunch of them. We see them all across the county.
We'll do a couple more, and then we'll let you continue on. What happens if you transfer a property to a parent from children?
So say, I should. That's a great question. I forgot to mention that part. It goes both ways. So parents can pass property to their children. Children can pass on to the parents. Same rule applies. It has to be the primary home of the transferor, and then becomes the primary home of the transferee. And you have to file the same paperwork, right? Homeowners exemption, parent-child exclusion, but it goes both ways. And to define a parent and a child, it's biological children and parents, it's adopted children and parents, it's children and parents who are married into the family. So like in-laws, your daughter-in-law, your son-in-law, your father-in-law, mother-in-law, those are considered the same as if they were biological children, as long as they're still married during the time of transfer. Okay. So all that applies. So great question. I forgot about that to say that. I forgot.
And then can you receive a secondary non-primary home from a parent without a reassessment of property taxes?
So no.
Yeah.
So
Right.
so here's the other change in California property tax law that Prop 19 did, right? The old law says I inherit my parents' property taxes. I don't have to live in that house to inherit it, right? So the old law says I could do that. I could take their house. I can get their low property taxes. The new law says I get to take their low property taxes as long as I'm living in that house. So if I'm taking a second house from them, I'm no longer living in the first house. So then that first house gets reassessed to market value, right? So you can only keep one.
Okay. Why don't we continue on?
Okay.
We'll take a little.
All right, next slide. I'm going to repeat it again. The new law eliminates the ability for you to pass the low property taxes for all rental property, commercial property, industrial, vacation home, cabins. All that now triggers a reassessment upon transfer. Next slide. So if the parents in between have passed away, the grandparents have the right then to pass on property to their children or their grandchildren, excuse me. So if my mom and dad were no longer alive, my grandmother could pass on a property directly to me. If my parents are still alive, that would not be allowed.
Oh, okay.
All right. So the parents in between have to be dead. Again, assessors are trying to change the law that would allow that to happen if the parents in between were still alive, but they were either mentally incapacitated or if they were in prison. That came to us as a request from a taxpayer. So we thought it was a good try and change. I don't know, most of these law changes require a vote of the public. So you, the voters, have to vote on any of these changes. All we're doing as assessors is making proposals to the state of California to make these laws better. So that way it makes it easier for us to do our job. It makes it better for you. So we make a lot of these recommendations all the time. Most of them don't get picked up. Next slide. All right, same example. Pleasanton house, $100,000 in 1980. It's a $1 million market value now. Next slide. What happens? I said there's a cap, right? What happens if the house is worth $2 million rather than $1 million today? The cap is a $1 million cap above the assessed value. So in this example, the assessed value today is $200,000, even though the house is worth $2 million. So the cap is $1 million above the $200,000 assessed value. So the first $1.2 million does not trigger a reassessment. The difference between the $2 million market value and the $1.2 million cap is $800,000. That $800,000 gets added to the original $200,000 base value from mom and dad. So there becomes a new assessment of $1 million. Next slide. I'm going to go over that math again real quick. All right. We said today's assessed value is $200,000. Mom and dad's paying property taxes based on a $200,000 assessed value. The house is worth $2 million. The cap is $1.2 million, right? Remember I said the cap is $1 million above the assessed value. Assessed value is $200,000. Thus the cap is $1.2 million. The difference between the cap and the market value is $800,000. $800,000 gets added to the $200,000 base value, so that you have a new base value after mom and dad give you the house, and assuming you do the paperwork with your county assessor, of $1 million. So next slide. So property taxes, if mom and dad kept the house at $2,500 a year. If they transfer the house to me before February 15, 2021, it stays $2,500 a year. If they transfer the house to me after February 15, 2021, and it was their primary home and it becomes my primary home, property taxes jump up to $12,500. If they transfer the house to me after February 2021, and it was neither a primary home for them or me, property taxes jump to $25,000. This is a very realistic scenario for a lot of families in Alameda County. This is what Prop 19 did to your property taxes. Next slide. If you don't understand what I said, remember the very first slide? Although I'm a lawyer, I'm not your lawyer. You need to go talk to a good lawyer. Talk to a good CPA. there's also something called a step-up provision. The step-up provision may or may not apply depending on your situation, whether you pass it on to your children when you die or not. That's also something very important to consider. I'm talking to you today about property taxes. The step-up provision deals with income taxes, specifically capital gains taxes. So you should keep that in mind as well. It's very important you have conversations with your children when deciding what to do with your property. Because what your children decide to do after they accept the property may matter to them dramatically. So have those, you'd be surprised how many times parents make estate planning decisions without talking to their children. So have those conversations. Next slide. It is so important, I say it twice. Get a good person to help you, a good lawyer and a good tax accountant. They're worth their weight in gold in helping you figure this stuff out. Next slide. All right, the second part of Prop 19. All right, next slide. If you're 55 or older, and I like to think that we'll be young forever, so we'll never be 55, but at some point we all turn 55. So this applies to you after you're 55. The old rule allowed you to take your low base value with you to 10 select counties in California. The new rule allows you to take it with you anywhere in the state of California. The old rule required that you buy a property, your replacement property, be at or below the market value of the house you sell. The new rule allows you to buy a more expensive house with a slight adjustment to your property taxes rather than a new assessment. The old rule allowed you to do it one time in your life. New rule allows you to do it 3 times. Next slide. All right. Similar situation, you buy a house for $200,000 in 1980 in Pleasanton. The assessed value today is $400,000. Remember I said 2% a year increase, almost doubles over 40 plus years. Property taxes are $5,000. You sell that house for $1.2 million. You buy a condo for $700,000. You could keep your low $5,000 a year property taxes with you when you move to that condo, as long as you file the form with the county assessor. It's called the base value transfer form. You have 2 years from the date in which you sell the first property to buy the second property, or 2 years from the date where you buy the property to sell your first property. Either way, you can do it either way first. But you have 2 years from the date of close of escrow to get that done. Next slide. Next slide. That just shows you what I just said. All right, let's go more expensive. Same scenario, you sell for $1.2 million. You decide to buy a house in San Diego for $1.7 million. I said there's a slight adjustment. So your property tax assessment is based at $400,000 a year. You bought a more expensive house. The difference in the market price for the house you sold versus the house you bought is $500,000. That difference gets added to your base value. So that difference of $500,000 gets added to your $400,000 base value. So you have a new base value of $900,000 now. As long as you fill out the form and you submit it to the assessor of the county in which you moved into. So you would fill out that form and send it to Assessor Marks in San Diego. Assessor Marks would then call me and say, hey, Phong, we have someone who moved here from Alameda County. Can you tell me what their base value was for their house in Pleasanton? So I will tell Assessor Marks what the base value, your base value was in Pleasanton, so he can use that in applying your new base value in San Diego. We can only do that if you fill out the form. We can't read your mind. You have to tell us what you're doing in order to benefit from some of this stuff. All right, next slide.
So instead of paying up to $21,000, you're paying $11,000 by doing that.
So great, thank you, Chris, for reminding me. So your old property taxes were $5,000. Your new property taxes are about $11,000 with applying the base value transfer. If you don't apply the base value transfer, your new property taxes in San Diego will be over $21,000. So there's a savings. It's not as much of a savings as you would like, I'm sure, but it's better than paying the market price. So that's how this saves you money. Next slide. All right, next slide. All right, I get a lot of questions about trust. I'm gonna give you a quick synopsis about how Prop 19 affects trust. when your house is in a trust, people always think there's no reassessment because there's no change of ownership because the trust still owns it after you die. Wrong. When a house is in a trust, there is a reassessment when there's a change to the beneficiary of the trust. So you could still be alive. I have a house in a trust. I am the beneficiary of my trust. I like Chris a lot. I decide to make Chris the beneficiary to benefit from my house. Because now there's a change of beneficiary from me to Chris, that triggers a reassessment for that house. Even though I'm still alive and the trust technically still owns the house, there's still a reassessment when there's a beneficiary change. So under Prop 19, the question is, Phong, what if I love my children equally? I have 3 kids. I tell them to share everything equally, right? And so I create a trust that says, when I die, my children need to share equally in this house. Well, as much as children may love each other, and you may love your children equally, they don't want to live in the same house together. I have 2 siblings. I love my brother and my sister. I've not lived in the same house with them since I was 18 years old and I moved away for college. I don't plan on living in the house with them again ever, other than a vacation from time to time. It's not going to happen. So what happens with the trust and the reassessment? I said, as long as one child lives in that house, after the parents give it to us, they can apply for a Prop 19 transfer and keep the low property taxes. But what happens if my siblings want to buy me out? If they use their own funds, if the house is in a trust, they use their own funds to buy me out, it triggers a reassessment. There is no exclusion for reassessment between siblings. The only exclusions apply to spouses and to parents and children if they qualify under Prop 19. So how do we get around that? Here's, next slide. Here's what has to happen. And very few people know this. The trust itself has to take out a name in the loan in the name of the trust. So the trust borrows money and uses that money to pay out the siblings. So the house is worth $900,000. There are 3 siblings. The house is paid off. The trust needs to go to the lender and say, I want to borrow $600,000 so I can pay out sibling A and B because sibling C wants to keep the house. In that situation, the assessor will say, show us the money, right? It's like that Jerry Maguire movie. Show me the money. We're going to ask you to show us where that money came from. If any of that money came specifically from any one of the siblings, their own money, it will trigger a reassessment. That show us the loan, show us the transfer of funds from the lender to the trust, and then we will ask for an accounting of how all that money got distributed to the siblings. And if it all matches up, then there will be no reassessment. And that one sibling C will go from 33% ownership to 100% ownership without triggering a reassessment. That's the only way in which that works. And I've seen a lot of families screw this up. And I have to say the whole, I'm sorry, I have to follow the law. I don't agree with the law. I don't like Prop 19. I don't agree with it, but I'm obligated. I took an oath to follow the law, whether I agree with it or not. And there are a lot of laws I don't like. So that's how trust works. All right, next slide. Okay, next slide. I just talked about this. We'll go into fun facts later. Do me a favor, go to the very last slide. If we have time, I'll come back to all the fun things in Alameda County, like who doesn't like your assessor and stuff. If you have any questions, go back one slide. One more slide. If you have any questions, what I did was I created a free legal clinic for any resident of Alameda County. You can sign up, talk to a lawyer for 30 minutes for free. These are good, smart lawyers. They're not going to answer, they're not going to be able to do the work for you. They can point you in the right direction as far as where to go and what to do. So that way things can get done to help you, the property owner. The clinic
there's one tomorrow.
fast. Go ahead.
There's one tomorrow, looks like.
Yeah, tomorrow's probably filled up already. Usually they fill up really quick.
Okay.
So feel free to reach out to the clinic and sign up for a consultation if you need it. And then last slide. We're here to help you. Here's our office email. Here's our office phone number. My only request is be patient with us. Last week, we had 500 to 600 phone calls a day, right? Because last week was property tax week, right? Everyone's paying and So people are waiting on the phones for over an hour sometimes. We just don't have the resources to hire that many more people. We moved a lot of personnel to operate the phone lines during that week, but even that sometimes is not enough. So just please be patient with us. We'll get back to you. We're here to help you. We work for you. All right. So I'm going to start answering some of these questions because I see a whole ton of questions.
Yeah.
In the chat.
Yeah.
All right.
You want me to, let's see, we talked about trust. Let's go.
Which question do we leave off with? Oh boy, I'm seeing a lot. Okay, let me start with, you said the trust is where we started off with, where we ended last time?
The trust of, let's see.
Okay. So
how do you determine?
I don't have data on how much, so I don't have data on how much property is impacted by Prop 19. Prop 19 affects you depending on what you want to do with your house. And I can't read your mind, so I don't know what's going to happen with your house. I don't know what you plan on doing with it. So I don't know how Prop 19 will affect the county or the state. We do track after someone files a Prop 19, and we tell the state of California how many requests we get each year for Prop 19 and whether we authorize the request or not, or whether we approved it or not. What about second home? Does it get reassessed as well? All second homes, when you transfer, if they're not a primary home, they don't qualify for Prop 19. So once there's a change of ownership or a transfer, they will trigger a reassessment. I bought a house with my parents 12 years ago. They own 50, I own 50 because I couldn't qualify for a mortgage at that time. Oh man, we get this question a lot. A lot of times parents are added to title or children are added to title in order to qualify for the loan. I tell people, it's your duty. If you want to come off title and you're saying, hey, I never lived there, it was never my home, only there for purposes of the loan, you have to prove that to us. And we have a list of documentation that you have to provide. You have to show your taxes, show that you never took a homeowner's exemption, you never took a homeowner's deduction, you never filed that home as your primary home on your taxes, you live somewhere else, you have a driver's license, voter registration, everything else that shows that that was never your home. Ideal world, you have a recorded agreement, and people fail to do this all the time. Your mom and dad should have written a contract with you and recorded it when you close escrow, proving to the world that they only added you on title for purposes of getting this loan. And people don't think to do that. And you can't do it after the fact, right? So there are ways of removing yourself without it, but it is hard. And it is your responsibility, not mine, to prove that you were truly there for purposes of the loan. For loan only, you can email my office. What they'll do is they'll send you the list of evidence that you would need to send over when you come off title in order to do that. What I tell people today is work with the bank to not require you to be on title. You can give a personal guarantee without being on title, and most banks will take that, right, to help with the loan. So that way you don't have to deal with this 10, 20 years later. And we see a lot of families having to deal with this today, and it sucks. If you can't prove that you were there for purposes of the loan only, then it will trigger a 50% reassessment according to the scenario you wrote in there.
This is what I've been on the title with my mom on a rental property since it was acquired. Can I come off the title without triggering a reassessment?
Again, a rental property, no. Like I said, if you were there for purposes of the loan, then it's gonna be really hard to prove, but you can do that. But if you weren't and you actually owned it 50-50 and it was a rental property, no. It will trigger a reassessment when you come off.
A Prop 8 reduction won't help if properties will purchase decades ago. Is that correct?
Not necessarily. So a decade was 2015. Let's say you overpaid in 2015. You bought a condo in 2015 in Oakland for $700,000, right? Your property taxes went up 2% a year for the last 10 years. I mean, it went up $140,000. So now you're paying $840,000 of assessed value. Hypothetically, if that condo is now only worth $750,000, there's a $90,000 difference right there. That could be a Prop 8 reduction, right? It's worth more than what you paid, but it's less than the assessed value today because there's a 2% increase a year. I know that I went through that kind of quick, but the answer is not correct. You could possibly get a Prop 8 reduction still, even though you bought it only 10 years ago.
Okay. And I
Wherever we
apologize.
buy houses through auction, the tax collector has a website. They work through a private third-party company that helps them auction off foreclosed properties.
Okay.
Homeowner's exemption for child to inherit a property includes, yes, it includes ADUs. And ADUs have a specific definition, right? Because some people built second units in their house and they're saying, oh, it's an ADU, but really it's a duplex, right? So it depends on whether it fits the state definition of an ADU. The state of California has a definition of what an ADU is. I don't have it off the top of my head, but it depends on several things based on the size and how it's built. If you shoot us a message, we can email you the definition. And actually, it might be on our website too, the definition of an ADU. I have a brochure as well on the website that talks about ADUs and junior ADUs, so it should all be on there.
Great.
Ari, if you're on the line, if you can find that website link for ADUs and put it on the chat, that'd be great.
Got it.
If you transfer an interest in a commercial property from your name into an LLC, where you're the sole member, does that trigger reassessment?
So it depends. So if I own a LLC with a commercial property and I'm 100% owner, and I change it to Phong Law individual as 100% owner still, then no, it does not. But I have to show the assessor my LLC documents, the governing documents and everything else. The same for reverse, right? I own a property in my name individually. I decide I want to protect myself. I'm creating an LLC that I own 100%. I can transfer it to the LLC and not trigger a reassessment. I have to show the assessor that I'm 100% owner of the LLC as well. So you can do that.
Do you need to hire a lawyer in order to transfer?
It depends on whether you feel comfortable doing it yourself or not, or whether you want a professional to do it. I can't tell you whether you should or shouldn't. That's for you to decide.
Is there a way to transfer the primary home and not get reassessed and still not get hit with capital gains?
I'm going to say talk to a CPA. I can't think. I'm not a CPA, right? I deal with property taxes, not income taxes. So I'm going to leave that to the professionals who deal with capital gains and income taxes. Where can we find the forms? On the website, there's a tab called Forms.
On the 5-year plan to delay paying taxes before a forced sale, does the county charge interest for payment penalties?
They charge interest and payments.
Just don't. Okay.
Again, that's the tax collector, not the assessor. So I'm gonna let them answer more details on that. But I'm aware that they do charge interest and late fees.
Can I avoid reassessment if my parents were essentially my bank that allowed me to purchase the house, and if I repaid them the loan amount when I was able to qualify and get a mortgage solely in my name?
So the question is a little vague. I'm assuming you're talking about, can you do a parent-child transfer under Proposition 19 where your parents give you the loan? Yes, you could do that. So remember, under Prop 19, it could be a sale of the house to you. It could be a gift of the house to you. It could be inheritance of the house. We don't care how your parents got you that house. That's irrelevant. What we care about is, was that your parents' primary home? Was it your primary home after they gave it to you? And did you do all the paperwork within the time required? Right? I have a friend who, I feel so bad for him. He moved into his dad's house to help care for his dad during his final days. Dad passes away. He is distraught, and they were best friends. And a year and 2 weeks later, after dad dies, he calls me and says, "Hey, Phong, what do I do? I heard I need to fill out some forms to keep my dad's low property taxes." A year and 2 weeks. He was 2 weeks too late. Right. Again, I didn't write that law. Voted on that law, so I have to apply it, even though I don't like it. All right.
Homeowner exemption counts for owner occupied in one of 4 units.
Correct. So you can pass on the fourplex, but only 1 unit will keep the low basis, and the other 3 units will get reassessed. Even if it's in one parcel, we can still partial reassess the parcel.
My parents' primary home is in a family trust, and the children are successor trustees. If children leaves property in family trust and lives in house after parents die, is the home still capped at 1 million plus assessed value?
Yes. That the property is in your trust and you pass to your children. Same thing.
Yep. How did you determine that 1 year was
I did not
time?
determine that 1 year. Again, I did not make up this rule. I did not like this rule when it was written. You voted for it. So it was written in there for 1 year. I didn't write 1 year.
How many residential properties are transferred, purchased every year, asking with,
Oh
as
God.
with natural buy sell movements?
A lot. We have over 500,000 parcels in Alameda County. You know what? I have an annual report, and that question is actually answered in our annual report.
Okay.
Our annual report is posted on our website as well. If you flip through it, it's one of the pages. It talks about how many deeds and transfers were done, how many of them trigger reassessments and whatnot. It's all in there. I'm gonna make a rough guess. I'm gonna say there are 30,000 transfers a year. That's a rough guess. But
They ask, is it just to take away the intergenerational property tax exemption or Prop 58? Doesn't the government have enough money?
is that a political question or?
I don't know.
I'm gonna take
What
a
about
pass on that last part.
what about putting the properties in an LLC? Would that trigger a reassessment of the parent?
Yes.
The parent dies. Yeah.
Yes, because LLCs, there's a change of control when the parents are the majority owners and they are dead, because they can't be in control when they're dead. How does a trust avoid a reassessment? I think I answered the question about trust earlier.
Yeah.
What can happen?
How can you, as the
you as
assessor?
assessor and private citizens influence? Call your members of the state legislature. I saw earlier that my friend Gina is on this Zoom. Gina is working with a group of people to try and undo Prop 19 and change it and bring back the old law. I think she's collecting signatures right now. I think they've tried twice already and didn't collect enough signatures. They're trying a third time right now. I just saw the article in the San Francisco Chronicle. They're trying for a third time to collect signatures. Before I say anything else, I should say, as the assessor, I take a position not to take public positions on most property tax initiatives, because I don't want anyone to think I'm biased, but obviously you can tell I have opinions. So I try not to be too opinionated when it comes to this stuff, because I don't want anyone to think that I have a bias when I'm doing my job. But I know that Gina is working on this. She's on this call. You can Google what she's doing and help her collect signatures if you want to try and change Prop 19.
Okay.
Prop 19 has been a lot of work for us, by the way. Like, we had to rebuild our computer systems in order to implement all these rules. All right,
Okay.
what if you live in a multi-unit building as your primary residence? Again, if you have a homeowner exemption on one of the units in a multi-unit building, you can pass on the low assessment to your children for one unit, but the others will get reassessed.
What if my adult child lives in the house instead of me when I inherit my mom's exempt property?
What if my adult child lives in the house instead of me? Again, grandparents to pass on to grandchildren, the parents in between have to be passed away. So if your mom wants to give to your child, you have to be dead. Sorry.
Right. If it's occupied but over $1 million, it will still be reassessed.
Partial reassessment. I think I went through the math earlier.
Yeah.
And you guys are welcome to look at that slide again and kind of do your own math, because every assessed value is different. But the math isn't too complicated.
If we put several properties in an irrevocable trust prior to the implementation of this new law,
It doesn't matter.
exempt?
It doesn't matter. Same rule applies to you whether you put it in the trust before or after Prop 19. Prop 19 is still the law of the land.
How long does the child live in the house?
Forever. The day the child moves out and no longer has a homeowner's exemption on that house, the Prop 19 low assessed value gets shot up to market value. And there are some assessors, I don't do this, but I know some of my colleagues in other counties do this. They send out a form every year. When they give a Prop 19 exclusion to someone, every year they send out a form saying, send this form back to us to let us know you're still living in this house. If you do not, we will take away your Prop 19 exclusion, and they'll reassess the house. We don't do that. We take you for your word. We believe that if you have the HOEX on there, you are actually telling us that you live there still.
And we're going to do Prop 19. We talked about that. So the transferee resides in the principal residence within 1 year of transfer and doesn't need to keep it principal after that.
Yeah, it has to always be the principal home.
Yeah.
How is current market value determined? We work as appraisers. We have 40 appraisers in our office. They do the same thing every appraiser does to determine market value.
If you use a rental property at any time, does this prevent use of exemption?
If you use rental property at any time, does it prevent use of exception? No, I mean, you can use something as a property. Like my mom and dad could have a rental house and then decide, no, I'm going to move back in and put a homeowner exemption on it and make it my primary home. They can do that too. You can go back and forth. The parents can before the transfer. After it's transferred to the child, at any point in time, if the child no longer uses it as a primary home, then they lose the exemption. It will get reassessed, and that reassessment will stay forever, right? So Prop 19 really didn't do people favors. Can you transfer investment property between parents and kids with, it will trigger a reassessment.
Yeah. Do these rules apply if your parent's house is in a trust? Julia, we talked about this.
Yeah, we talked about that already.
Follow up to the previous question is, this is a rental property. Okay. So you have to, you have to live in it. If the property is in a broker trust, do old rules from 21 or post 21 apply? No.
New rules today apply. It doesn't matter when you put in the trust. The new rules apply.
Please clarify that the transfer tax was hidden on Prop 19, which was campaigned as allowing seniors to transfer tax base to other country.
To other counties. So yeah, so Prop 19, like I said, had two parts to it. If you remember all the TV commercials, they talked about one part and not the other. So yeah.
Was Prop 19 born to create revenue only?
You're gonna have to ask the people who created Prop 19.
Can we avoid the property tax increase if we were set up to a deed trust? No.
No.
What if two seniors sell their homes and buy a house together as a primary residence? Would both
the home they sell has to be their primary residence as well.
So it would work
as long as it's their primary residence. And only one of the two have to be a senior. So if you're married and your spouse is a lot younger, the only one of the two who own the house together have to be a senior.
Okay. Can your child keep that tax amount when they move into it? And if parent over 55 moves elsewhere, also keep that amount in taxes in new home?
Primary property to qualify. So one or the other. The parents can either take it with them to the new house or they can give it to the children. Can't have both.
Right.
So the question is, how much do the parents love their children? All right, guys. I see there's like 38 more questions in there, and I love the questions. Can we set up another time where I'm just answering your questions? Because I do have one more meeting I need to get to. I have to explain how finances work to some members of some elected people in Alameda County who don't quite understand housing finances.
Phong, can we guess who?
I'm gonna be nice. Was that Derek?
It is.
That was Derek. Yes.
I'm stalking.
I'd be happy to come back if you guys want, just so I can answer questions. So I can spend more time just answering your questions. I have no problem doing that. These are great questions, by the way. I wish I could get to all of them, but I know with 40 questions, there's no way I can get through all of them the next hour.
Yeah. Okay.
I'd be happy to do that. Thank you for inviting me here today, guys. I love working with you guys. Appreciate you guys. Derek and Chris are great to work with. So you guys are very lucky as an organization to have such wonderful people working with you. But like I said, we're here to help you. We work for you. So feel free to reach out anytime. And many of you see me in the community a lot, right? And if you really don't like Prop 19 and what I just said, Google the group. I can't remember the name of the group that Gina's working with. But they're working on it to collect signatures. So if you want to help,
I'll find out what it is and I'll send it out to everyone as well. We'll get that's registered. We've got everyone's email addresses. We can do a follow-up. This is also recorded, so we're gonna have that recording available of this so people can watch it. Again, check out the clinic that Assessor Law has set up for in person. You can get some help as well. But I wanted to say thank you again. I really appreciate you taking the time to come out here, and I know it was rapid fire questions. Hopefully it was helpful for everyone, and we'll try to get something else set up in the future to answer more questions.
Thank you, Phong. Happy holidays to you guys.
Just email my staff and they'll figure out another date in which we're free, and then we can do that. I don't have a problem doing this live too if you guys want to do this live. It's more fun for me to make more jokes live and in person. All right, guys, have a good one.
You got it.
Bong, have a good holiday. Thanks,
Thank you, guys.
Take good care.
And yeah, thank you everyone for joining us today. Really appreciate you taking time out today to join us. Hopefully this was helpful and kind of shedding some light on Prop 19 and how it impacts your properties. We appreciate again for coming today. If you don't know much about EBRHA, come check us out at EBRHA.com, and appreciate you joining us. And thank you again. Bye-bye.